Knowledge, al-ilm. Allah is attributed with an eternal, everlasting knowledge. Whatever is related to this attribute is known, ma'loom, whether existing or not, eternal or created. Yani, something can be known even if it doesn't exist. Knowledge pertains to the non-existent. That's different from sight, as we'll see. Something can't be seen if it doesn't exist, because sight pertains to the existent. A thing is seen because it exists, but it's not known because it exists. So whatever is related to this attribute is known, ma'loom, whether existing or not. So Allah knew in eternity everything before it happened. And what's not going to happen, He knows that too. We'll come to that. Insha'Allah, eternal or created, Allah knows the eternal, meaning He knows Himself and He knows His attributes. So His knowledge pertains to what is eternal, and His knowledge pertains to what is created, because He knows all the creations. Allah knows Himself and His attributes with His eternal knowledge. None knows His reality but Him. No prophet or angel knows the reality of Allah. He knows the necessary, the impossible, and He knows all of the creations and possibilities before creating them, and after they were created, in general and in detail. He knows the necessary, the impossible, and He knows all of the creations and possibilities. So the necessary, that means what must necessarily exist according to the judgment of the sound mind. That's Himself. So He knows the necessary, that means He knows Himself and His attributes. He knows the impossible, like He knows that He doesn't have a partner, that He would never have a partner. He knows that He's not weak. And He knows all of the creations and all of the possibilities. He knows all of the possibilities before creating them and after they were created. In general, He knows them. Yani, universally, He knows them. And in detail, yani, the particulars of them He knows, including the events of the afterlife, which are continual and uninterrupted. Yani, He knows all the events of the afterlife, what all the people of paradise do, what all the people of hell do. He knows every single one of those unending events. The events of the afterlife, which are continual and uninterrupted. He knows the exact number of the unending breaths of the people of paradise and hell. They never end, those breaths, and His knowledge about them does not increase, nor does it decrease or develop or change. Abu Hanifa said, وَكَانَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى عَالِمًا فِي الْأَزَلِ بِالْأَشْيَاءِ قَبْلَ كَوْنِهَا. In eternity, Allah the Exalted was knowledgeable about the things before their being. There is no situation that He did not know and then knew. Allah said in the 66th verse of Al-Anfal, الآن خفف الله عنكم وعلم أن فيكم ضعفا. Now Allah has lightened for you the previous command of fighting the blasphemers, even if they were 10 times as many as the Muslims. And he knew that in you there is weakness. Now Allah has lightened for you that command. He made it easier for you believers. It used to be obligatory for one believer to stand up to 10 kuffar in the battlefield. For every believer, 10 kuffar, the Muslims could not run away. Al-ana khaffafa Allahu ankum. Now Allah has lightened for you that judgment. وَعَلِمَ أَنَّ فِيكُمْ ضَعْفًا. And He knew that in you there is weakness. So it became one Muslim to every two kuffar. The word al-an, now, is not linked to alima, he knew. So it does not mean that Allah gained new knowledge. Likewise is the case of the 31st verse of Muhammad. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ حَتَّى نَعْلَمَ الْمُجَاهِدِينَ مِنْكُمْ وَالصَّابِرِينَ. And we shall test you so that we would know, as we knew in eternity, the true mujahids among you and the patient ones. So this ayah doesn't mean that Allah gained new knowledge. Here, hatta na'lam, so that we would know. It doesn't mean he didn't know. So one way to explain it is so that he would know while the creations are existing, the creations who are existing in time, as he knew in eternity before those creations were existing. That's one way to explain it here. And we shall test you so that we would know, as we knew in eternity, the true mujahids among you and the patient ones. That means so that the mujahids would appear and be distinguished from others, so that the patient ones would appear and be distinguished from others as Allah knew they would be. When anything happens, that makes the creations know what Allah already knew. Yani, I think that's clear. Something happened, someone died, for example, on a day, then you know now that that one is dead, what Allah knew in eternity, that that one would be dead on this day. Similar is the 37th verse of Al-Anfal. لِيَمِيزَ اللَّهُ الْخَبِيثَ مِنَ الطَّيِّبِ. So that Allah would distinguish the wretched people from the good. So that Allah would distinguish the wretched people from the good. So still, we're bringing ayahs to say, these do not mean that Allah acquires new knowledge. لِيَمِيزَ اللَّهُ الْخَبِيثَ مِنَ الطَّيِّبِ. Someone might take this English translation in a way that is not intended by it. So that Allah would distinguish the wretched people from the good. Distinguish them means here, Allah is the distinguisher here. That's the meaning. لِيَمِيزَ اللَّهُ. So that Allah would distinguish. That's what the Arabic is saying. So this doesn't mean that Allah acquires a new knowledge. This means that Allah would make known to others who among you is evil and who is good. Then you will know, when you will know what Allah knew. Allah said, وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ. No one encompasses any of the knowledge of Allah except by His will. The slave does not acquire the knowledge of Allah, which is His attribute, but the slave might know something that Allah already knows. So then that means we're talking about the ma'loom, what's known, not the ilm, the knowledge itself. Ilm, knowledge, that's the attribute. That attribute pertains to the ma'loom, what's known. And it's valid sometimes to call what's known knowledge. That's what happened in this ayah here. وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنْ عِلْمِهِ أي من معلومه إلا بما شاء. They do not encompass anything of his knowledge, means what's known to him. It's not the attribute here. The word is ilm, but it doesn't refer to his eternal attribute. Rather, refers to what's known, what the attribute pertains to. So the slave does not acquire the knowledge of Allah, but the slave might know something that Allah already knows. And the slave would not know anything unless Allah willed. Like the angel said, قالوا سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا. They said, you are supremely glorified from imperfection and resemblance. We have no knowledge except what you taught us. Allah said, وعنده مفاتيح الغيب لا يعلمها إلا هو ويعلم ما في البر والبحر وما تسقط من ورقة إلا يعلمها ولا حبة في ظلمات الأرض ولا رطب ولا يابس ولا يابس إلا في كتاب مبين. He possesses the keys to the unseen. This is a figure of speech that means that none of it is unknown to him. For whoever has the keys to something has full access to it. Whoever has the keys to something has full access to it. So he possesses the keys to the unseen. None knows them but he. Yani, there's a difference between having keys and knowing those keys. You could have keys, but if you don't know what they go to, then they won't benefit you. He knows what is on land and at sea. No leaf falls but that he knows it. There is no grain in the darkness of earth, nor anything moist or dry, but that it is inscribed in a clear book. All of the Muslims have the unanimous agreement that Allah knows about everything eternally. Believing that Allah is ignorant about a single matter is blasphemy by the consensus. Some believe that Allah only knows things in general, not in detail. And some believe that He knows the bad deeds only after the slave commits them. Therein is a signal to the corruption of whoever said that Allah is not knowledgeable about details. They said He only knows about things generally or universally. That's blasphemy. Those are the philosophers who are ascribed to Islam. They're not Muslims though, but they're not ascribed to another religion. They're affiliated with Islam. Those are the philosophers who are affiliated with Islam, for the old philosophers denied all the attributes of Allah. Yani, this isn't the argument of the old philosophers that He knows universally only and not in detail, because the old ones said He doesn't even have knowledge in the first place. because they denied all of his attributes, not just his knowledge of the details of things. He said, so they said, like the Mu'tazila. Yes. Again, the Mu'tazila took from them. Those philosophers are old, since before Prophet Isa alayhi salatu wassalam. Sometimes the scholars call them al-awa'il. Al-awa'il means first ones. Sometimes they call them al-qudama, that means the ancient ones. This is one of the three cases produced by those people, those philosophers who are affiliated with Islam. This is one of the three cases produced by those people that necessitate their being charged with blasphemy. The other two are their claim that particles have no beginning and their denial of the resurrection of the bodies. They said only the souls are resurrected, not the bodies. Allah eternally knew what would happen, and He willed for that to happen. According to us, Ahlul Sunnah, everything that Allah knew would exist, He willed to exist, whether or not He ordered for it to be done. So that's three things we just mentioned there: the knowledge, the will, and the order. So which two went together here? Whatever He knew would exist, He willed for it to exist. Not what He ordered, whether or not He ordered for it to be done. An order is something different. An order is a reference to speech. An order is a reference to speech. Here, whatever He knew would exist, He willed for it to exist. We're not talking about speech here. Whether or not He ordered for it to be done. His order, which is to say, in eternity, not to do something or to do something. His order in eternity, which is for the slaves to do something. And then that would be revealed to a prophet. And then the prophet would tell the people. According to us, everything that Allah knew would exist, He willed to exist, whether or not He ordered for it to be done. His ordering for it to be done doesn't mean that He willed for it to happen. Because, as we'll learn, inshallah, as will come, the order of Allah, sometimes we mean just the order for the slaves to do something, to be obedient. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about when Allah commands for something to exist. When He says to something, kun, be, we're not talking about that order. We're talking about His order for the slaves to pray and to fast. We're talking about what's called al-amru taklifi, the command of accountability, or the accountability command. It doesn't have anything to do with creating. This command that makes us accountable to do obligations and avoid sins, it's not related to creating anything. So whatever Allah knew would exist, He willed for it to exist, whether or not He ordered for it to be done. Everything that He knew would not exist, He did not will for it to exist. At-Tahawi said, خَلَقَ الْخَلْقَ بِعِلْمِهِ. He created the creation in accordance with His knowledge. This statement signifies that the condition of having the power to create is the Creator's knowledge of the creation. What Tahawi said, خَلَقَ الْخَلْقَ بِعِلْمِهِ. He created the creation by his knowledge, means in accordance with his knowledge. That's because the creator has to know, and whoever does not know is not the creator. Whoever creates by his will and choice has to be knowledgeable of what he creates. Like, we're not knowledgeable about our vocal cords and our footsteps and many, many things. We're not knowledgeable about the details of how our tongues flex when we speak and all of those things. And just for us to move a finger, we are not knowledgeable about the reality of this. All that is apparent is that we want to do it and Allah enables us to move. So then we're not the creators of those. How could I be the creator of that movement of my finger if I don't know the reality of that? Whoever creates by his will and choice has to be knowledgeable of what he creates. It is impossible that the one who creates would not be knowledgeable of what he creates. And again, all of these here are in small letters, one who and knowledgeable and he, because that's for argument's sake. Allah said, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ. Does not who created, or does who created not know? He knows what shall never occur and how it would be if it were to be. What's never going to happen, he knows it and how it would be if it would be. How it would be if it were to occur. And evidence for that, there's plenty of evidence for that. And among them is this saying of Allah, وَلَوْ رُدُّوا لَعَادُوا لِمَا نُهُوا عَنْهُ. If they were sent back to the earthly life after being resurrected, they certainly would do again that which was forbidden for them. This shows that Allah knows what will not happen, which is their going back to the earthly life after being resurrected, and how it would happen if it were to happen, which is that they would just resort to what they used to do. Yani, the inclinations that they had the first time they were living in the earth will come back to them, and then they will do again what they used to do. وَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَبِحَمْدِهِ.